In the wake of Hillary Clinton comments that nobody likes Bernie Sanders and her extreme reluctance to say she would back him if he were nominee, let alone campaign for him, we are asking the question, what if Bernie is the nominee? Will the establishment line up behind him?
That's right. So host of the Kyle Kulinski show, Kyle Kulinski, is joining us now via Skype. Good to see you, Kyle. How are you, man?
Hey, guys. I'm doing good. Good to see you, too.
Great to see you.
Well, yeah, we've been talking about this on the show, Kyle, just about as we see Bernie kind of rise in the polls and you see the institutional Hillary infrastructure line up against him, Hillary herself can't even commit to backing him. How do you see that kind of dynamic going forward? What percentage of the establishment Democrats ultimately would end up supporting him and which ones won't?
I mean, that's a really good question. My gut instinct is to say we're going to have to see on a case-by-case basis because I don't know. If I had to guess a percentage, I would say that maybe 50% of them will reluctantly fall in line and hold their nose and do what they have to do. But I do see a fairly significant chunk of them, either not supporting anybody and staying out of it or doing a goofy thing like begging Mike Bloomberg to run third party, which of course would, tank the election and kind of hand it over to Trump. So I can see that happening. In the case of Hillary, I mean, the thing that's upsetting about what she said is not like I won't campaign for him or whatever. Like the thing that was upsetting was nobody likes him when she said that because, of course, he's the most popular senator in the country. And the fact that there's such giant hypocrites because they always scream about unity all day long. And, they don't mean it. What they mean is people on the left be quiet and fall in line and back a centrist because we say so. So, as far as her, I might not back Bernie. I might not campaign for him. Good. You have a 36% approval rating. Stay away. That's all I ask of her is don't say anything for, don't say anything against. She could just stay away.
Yeah. I don't know. I would kind of enjoy watching her campaign for it. Send her to North Dakota or New York, someplace that's solidly going one way or the other. I would kind of enjoy that. Just me personally, that's just me. But it was actually very revealing how people responded to her comments yesterday because basically, and I went through this today, basically all of the Hillary world people were either totally silent, they pretended it didn't happen, they tried to spin her words, et cetera, et cetera. Some of the Obama people, like the Pod Save guys, immediately came out and said, no, absolutely, we'd line up behind the nominee. So I thought that was kind of an interesting schism that was somewhat revealed. And I can certainly imagine a world, Kyle, where there's, a handful of much celebrated media figures who go the never Bernie Democrat direction and all get cable news contracts as voice of reason within the Democratic Party. I can totally see that playing out.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great point. And actually, you kind of swayed me more to the direction of, I don't know, maybe it'll be a 20% chunk that'll say, no, I'm never going to vote for Bernie. Because when you look at the Republican Party, that is analogous. And what you saw is, there was Bill Kristol, there was David Frum, there was a handful of other war criminals, and then a handful of people who are have totally drunk the Kool-Aid on free trade and think that any kind of restrictions on trade are a bad thing. And that was the only chunk that kind of broke away from Trump and said, never, I'm never going to support him. But it is true that the majority just kind of was all right, what are we going to do on the right? So it's possible maybe it's an 80-20 split. Here's what I can guarantee you. The actual voters will absolutely back Bernie Sanders, even if
That's
they
right.
self-describe as a centrist Democrat. The ones who might not are, like we're talking about here, the establishment figures, the people who are in these elite moneyed circles.
Yeah.
And Kyle, I'm actually intrigued to hear from you on this. Since you co-founded the Justice Democrats, you guys were relentlessly attacked as saying, they don't toe the party line, they don't believe in party unity, they just want to destroy the Democratic Party. I mean, how is it now to see that? I mean, you're seeing that the same thing happen, except now you're kind of in the winning position, as you see with, or at least in the front-runner status, with Bernie Sanders, to see that they actually believe in the exact same thing where they're not going to stick with you.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I always felt like we should acknowledge the fact that there is a democratic civil war. There's this weird thing that goes on where, and listen, the model, honestly, is Donald Trump. anytime any establishment goon on the right said anything negative about Trump, he punched them back in the face twice as hard. And you know what? It worked because the Republican establishment is a paper tiger, just like the Democratic establishment. So whenever you see this instinct of like, hey, let's de-escalate, hey, let's unify, hey, let's all get along, my response to that was always, well, no, the way you win a civil war within a party is to acknowledge that you're in it and then you fight it.
Yeah.
So I was always of the belief that we should acknowledge the reality of the situation. There is a war going on for the soul of the Democratic Party. You have a centrist, neoliberal, technocratic wing of the party, which has failed over and over and has brought no change and has hurt working people. And then you have our wing, the left wing of the Democratic Party, the Justice Democrats. And I always wanted a more aggressive strategy, a more upfront strategy, because I really do think these people are paper tigers on the other side. And we can win if we just lay out the differences and explain the differences. And that's actually one of the reasons why I was pretty upset with Bernie's response when it came to, him apologizing to Biden and him just kind of like swatting aside the Hillary thing. Like, these people, you can win, you can fight back. It's one thing to not, gratuitously go on the offense. It's another thing to refuse to even play defense for yourself.
Yeah.
It's another thing to refuse to counterpunch. You should counterpunch, and people will be on your side.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, I'm kind of conflicted on this because on the other hand, the polls show that voters are responding to the approach of Bernie basically staying above the fray and are kind of seeing through the attacks on him. So in the micro, I think partly because of his opponent's missteps, it's worked out for him.
Yeah, I think, Crystal, I just needed one thing from him. Like, I just needed, in the case
I feel you.
like, the Hillary situation, just say something like, I don't need lectures on likability from somebody with a 36% approval rating. That's it.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah.
And then everybody laughs and everybody moves on and they go, wow, Hillary really has kind of gone off the rails, hasn't she? So that's all I wanted. And in the case of Biden, I understand what they're trying to do. And if Bernie were to say behind the scenes to his own people, hey, lay off a little bit on the corruption thing, even though, by the way, he is corrupt, that's one thing. But to go out there and apologize,
Yeah.
now you're guessing us because it's a matter of fact that Biden is corrupt. So when you say, no, don't say that, what you're saying is, I'm going to help cover up for Biden's corruption. So that's a totally different step, and it's not good.
You're
Yeah,
exactly right,
I
Kyle.
agree with
And it's
that.
funny enough, Joe Biden was on Morning Joe. They asked him about the Social Security thing. He goes, Bernie has already apologized to me. Well, it wasn't about that, but he's using it, and he's going to say it all day long, which is Bernie apologized to me. Bernie apologized to me. So you just gave your opponent one of the best defenses against you, and it's kind of mystifying.
Yeah, like somebody said on Twitter, he's bringing, I think it was Jordan Sheridan, he said he's bringing a spoon to a knife fight.
Well said.
Says it all.
All right.
Kyle, thank you so much.
Thank you, man.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
And we'll have more Rising for you after this.